putting together a task force in the House. I want to thank the members of that task force and others who have participated, because we have taken the ideas of the task force in addition to ideas from many bills that you've probably seen have been introduced in the House and incorporated many of them within this framework. I want to talk briefly about the two provisions dealing with preventing foreign interests from dumping millions of dollars into U.S. elections. As Senator Schumer pointed out, you have many U.S. corporations that are based here in the United States that are controlled by foreign interest, whether it's Hugo Chavez, whether they're the sovereign wealth funds of the Chinese government, many others. Those are just some examples. And I would hope that every American would agree that we don't want foreign interests spending money to influence the outcome of American elections. Understandably, those foreign interests put those foreign interests first, not America's interests first, and not the interests of American citizens. So we prevent those entities that are controlled by foreign interests from spending that corporate money in these elections. Our test is threefold. If the foreign ownership is 20% or more, that constitutes a corporation controlled by a foreign interest. Or if a majority of their board of directors is made up of foreign principals, that also constitutes a foreign controlled interest. And then there's finally an objective test in those cases where you have foreign ownership below 20%, but where it's clear that the effective decision making with respect to political activities and the expenditure of funds for political activities is made by foreign interests. So those are the components that will be considered in this legislation for determining where the ban will apply. Secondly, with respect to what we call pay-to-play transactions, I think every American would agree that we don't want federal contractors that are getting taxpayer dollars to be able to then turn around and essentially use those taxpayer dollars to fund campaigns to support or oppose candidates. And federal contractors have been treated differently in other parts of the campaign finance law, and we believe it's important to extend that treatment with respect to the expenditures that we're talking about here. So we would say that if you're a federal contractor, and by definition you're therefore receiving taxpayer dollars, you can't turn around and spend money to try and elect or defeat candidates directly through your corporate funds. And secondly, if you've received TARP monies, if you're AIG or a big Wall Street firm or other firms that have received TARP monies, until you pay back those TARP monies to the taxpayer, you cannot be using your corporate funds to try and defeat or elect a candidate. Again, we don't want a big firm like AIG to be able to take a lot of taxpayer dollars and then turn around and try and use those dollars to defeat candidates who support regulating Wall Street or other big financial interests. That's just wrong, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Finally, let me just say a word about the disclosure provisions, because the follow-the-money provisions that Senator Schumer talked about are extremely important. We should all be able to agree, everybody in the country should agree, that the American people should know who is paying for this political advertising. People shouldn't be able to hide behind dummy corporations or shell entities that they set up. The voter has a right to know about that disclosure. And when it comes to corporate spending that we're talking about, shareholders also have a right to know, and they are required under this legislation to make disclosures to their shareholders. We are also going to be looking at the possibility of a component that requires some form of shareholder approval. In the House, Barney Frank, Mike Capuano, and others have been looking at that, and that's a possibility down the road to be added to this if they can devise a meaningful structure to accomplish that purpose. And so that will be included if they can work something out that we all think makes sense going forward. So again, I want to thank the members of the task force, thank Senator Schumer, it's important that we move expeditiously. The Supreme Court decision will begin to open those floodgates of big corporate special interest money into elections. It's not in the interests of the American people, and we need to act quickly.
Thanks, Chris. We're ready for your question.
Senator Schumer, which of these provisions would apply to unions as well, and how do you draw them to unions?
Every provision would apply to unions, I believe. Every single one. And to 501c3s, 4s, 5s, 527s.
And is there, real quickly,
because the law, by the way, changed. We don't want a corporation to then be able to hide behind things by channeling money through one of these organizations.
Is there a way, you talked a minute ago, Mr. Van Hollen, about the option of shareholder approval. Is there a way of drawing that would also apply to union membership?
Well, that's one of the difficult issues, and because in both our bodies, the Banking Committee has jurisdiction over the shareholder issues, we're working with our colleagues there to see what we could come up with.
Phil?
Yes.
Any Republican support as of yet?
Okay. We believe we will get some Republican support here. It is very hard for me to see how people would be against disclosure or allowing foreign corporations to influence our political process, or allowing even domestic corporations to try and use this new Supreme Court decision to actually get government contracts and money. So we've tried to limit this. You could have gone broader, but what we're trying to do is limit it to the areas that we think there'll be some broad consensus. And we're very hopeful that we can get some of our Republican colleagues to be supportive.
Any early response from
Not yet.
Republicans?
No. We spent most of our time drafting this legislation. We wanted to leave you the broad outlines, the specific outlines, really, today, and so that we can get reaction from people over the next week while we're on recess.
Let me just comment on that, too, because we are going to reach, we will continue to reach out in the House to try and obtain support from every member, regardless of party, because as the Senator said, this should not be a partisan issue. And I think if you look at the surveys, the public surveys, it's very clear. Republicans, Democrats, Independents alike believe this was a bad decision that does open the door wide to big corporate special interest money. So the fact that we have focused this, I think, should provide help. Now, the day the Supreme Court decision came down, Senator McCain said he was, quote, disappointed in the Supreme Court's decision. He then said he wasn't sure whether or not we'd be able to do anything about it. Well, we've provided a very targeted option for doing something about it. So we hope our Republican colleagues will join us.
The real-time disclosure requirements, would these require that the companies or the organizations disclose expenditures within a certain time period after or before an ad is run? And would the FEC be posting that stuff on their website?
Yeah, we're going to try, as we said, 24, when they make an expenditure, whether it's to a separate group or for the ad itself, it has to be posted 24 hours.
You mentioned
Yes.
that the White House was involved in this, and wonder
Yes.
if you can give any more detail about their level of involvement, and then separately, if you might want to talk about potential recess appointments when the Senate goes on recess.
The White House has been very much involved. I think our staffs have had several meetings with the White House folks. They've been generally supportive of these provisions, I think they would, when we actually introduce legislative language, which, as I said, we're letting this bake a little bit and seeing if people have suggestions. It's very complicated. We won't do legislative language for a little while, but soon, hopefully by the time we're ready to come back here. But I would expect we'll get White House support for it.
So when do you think this will actually come to the floor of either chamber?
Well, that's what has to be decided, but we want to move it quickly. And as I said, Leader Reid asked us, and Speaker Pelosi did as well, to put in a proposal quickly. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
Can I ask you very quickly about the Schumer-Hatch jobs proposal?
Yeah, I'll do one question. We have to go do a conference
do you
call
have
for
a
the
sense
people.
of how many jobs, the range anyway, that might be created from it?
Well, look, the Schumer-Hatch proposal is not supposed to be immediate and affect corporations of all sizes that are right now on the edge. You've seen 5.7% growth. The stimulus money is still being spent out. And if companies are about to say, hey, maybe I'll hire someone, this will push them over the edge. So we expect it'll be very successful at getting many, many unemployed people off the payrolls, but you just don't know how many. Many of the other jobs tax credits in the past were both slow and they were not aimed at the unemployed. We've tried to correct both of those things here. A small business that has 5 people can use this because they don't have to fill out large, they don't need to hire an accountant and then apply for their next year taxes. And if you talk to small business people in particular, that's what deterred them from previous essays.
And recess appointments?
No, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't make any.
Is the job still going to be laid down today on the floor?
Congressman Van Hollen and Senator Schumer announcing legislation